Hi, this is Gil Robles, and in this video what I'm going to do is share with you a sketchbook that I recently completed. I've been working on this sketchbook since February, and I just finished it. It's May, so I spent a few months on this sketchbook, sketching every day on my lunch hour at work, just using this sketchbook, which I dedicated to one medium. In the past, I've used other sketchbooks, and I've used a number of mediums in that sketchbook: pen and ink, brush and ink, watercolor, pencil, gouache, so forth. But for this sketchbook, I'm just going to, I just dedicated it to using gouache paint and learning from the gouache paint. Gouache is one of my favorite mediums. I don't have the space to do oil paintings, so I've focused in this sketchbook on gouache because it's kind of a medium between oils and which I love using, but I haven't been able to get back to because I don't have the space for it at home. But it's kind of a medium between oils and watercolors, and that it's a watercolor, it's a water-based paint, but I can build opaquely on top of it, and unlike acrylic, I can continue to reactivate it like watercolor. So I have these binder clips just to prevent the page from warping, even though there's little of danger in that with this sketchbook. This is a sketchbook with very nice paper, very thick paper. You can't see on this, but it's a Stillman and Burns beta series. It's got very thick paper that's great for watercolors, for water-based media, and for building building layers of paint, because the paint is so thick. Now, this is my first painting in the sketchbook, my first entry in this sketchbook, and initially when I started sketching this sketchbook, it did take me just 1 hour to complete an entire sketch. But as I went on, and I wanted to push what I did, push what I knew, it would take several hours. It would be over several days or several lunch periods, or sometimes I would come back at home and rework the painting and so forth. But this one, I stuck to that 1 hour sketch, and maybe as I went on, it drifted from being just a sketch. But my idea was that I'm going to start from here, and from wherever I start from, I want to push to improve what I'm able to do with this paint, with this medium. So I started there, and the next day I did this painting, and it didn't take me more than an hour. I believe this painting didn't, although I might have come back and touched it up, because I did do that. I reevaluate what I did, as I look through my sketchbook, as I thumb through it, and then I would think that there might be things that I can change, and gouache is great for that, because I can go back into it, I can reactivate the paint, I can either push the paint that's already there, or I can with just water, or I can add more paint to it, depending on what I want to do with the paint. And as I'm going on doing these sketches, I'm trying to envision what it is I want to do. Over here, I picked a reference photo with reflective light, or bounce light, and you can see that cool light on the side. Now I've used, you see it over here, but this I pushed it a little bit more, and it was fun to play with, because one side was mostly cool, the other side was mostly warm. Then keeping the values simple at the same time. There is a large contrast, especially in the middle, but as it goes to the side, it becomes more and more subtle as far as the values are concerned. But I liked it. I liked pushing the warm and the cool colors, and trying to make it work. I wanted to continue to explore this as I go on, and explore many things, because there are two things that I'm trying to accomplish. One, I'm trying to get better at painting and drawing and so forth, and that's a given, and getting technically better. And the other is trying to be better at handling the specific medium. So this is another thing I also wanted to, from time to time, make the painting a little bit more brushy. And again, I'm going ahead and including the reflected light. At this point, I think I was a little bit too much reliant on the reference, but that would change as I went on, and I kept coming back and touching that up. Over here, I really wanted to do something beyond just making a sketch of the head, even though I enjoy that and continue to paint or make sketches of just heads and so forth. But I wanted to include more of the figure in this one, and I found myself, I didn't want to noodle so much with this little tiny areas, and that's what I found myself doing, with these working with a small brush. And so I really needed a larger it's too small. I needed a larger sheet of paper to work with. This is probably the only painting that I am totally unhappy with in this sketchbook. It actually looked a lot worse than this when I first at the end of the day, and the session that I finished it. But I kept coming back to it and reworking it to the point where I couldn't anymore. I mean, the paint was the light areas just kept getting absorbed, and it began to look a bit chalky, and I didn't want to push it any more than it is. I corrected the drawing as much as I can, and tried to change around the colors, and but it was a fight to get it to where it is now. As a result, I wasn't happy. I wasn't tearing anything out of my sketchbook though, and this one I was more happy with. I came back the next day, and I wanted to explore that whole idea of bounce light, but I exaggerated. I didn't stay so close to the reference as far as the color is concerned. I exaggerate the color. I stayed close as far as the drawing is concerned, but when it came to the color, I exaggerated the vibrancy of the color, and I pushed to make it more vibrant. I think that, in looking back at this, maybe the white highlight on her forehead was just a little bit too bright, but that's about it. Here's a sketch of Captain America. I collected comic books when I was a kid, and I don't collect comic books now, but I love going to the movies and seeing these characters, and I thought this would be fun to do, and I just wanted to, this is more of, I looked at the other sketches, I was very serious. This is more of a relax, and this Hulk one too is more of a chance for me to relax, and kind of just do something that I thought was fun, and that I didn't have to rely so much on the reference, but I can manipulate it and turn it into something like this. Is I think 3 different reference photos is that I used to put together this face, this angry face, as well as go ahead and did put the hand in there from imagination, just wanting to just have fun, relax that day. The other sketches are more of it. I enjoy them, but there's a different intensity involved when I'm doing the other type of when I'm doing the other sketches in the sketchbook. When I'm doing these Marvel characters, it was just fun to do, But like I also have kind of an idea of these characters, and I even as I use the reference, I'm trying to do my own take on it, and also just depart from the reference wherever I felt it was appropriate, and especially the whites that surround the figure. This one I was trying to, and I can recall everything I was trying to do. I was trying to simplify the shapes. I mean, I chose the photograph because it was high in contrast, and I can work on I can work on unifying the darks and so forth. And um, this is similar. This is similar in a way, but it's a lot more subtle. And I went back into the darks to try and preserve this luminosity that I remembered when I took the picture. This one, in the same way, there was a lot of reflective light and a lot of light bouncing around from, or a lot of color bouncing around from the reds and the blues. The blue was something that I added because I added the color to the background, so I found ways of working that into the sketch. The red was obvious because it's in her dress, it's in her hair, and so it's the light or the color, the light bouncing on that color and therefore bouncing on her skin and on the darks and creating that rim light that you see. But then again, pushing the color and beyond what was in the reference material. So I didn't stick that closely to it, and I didn't strive to make it so detailed and so forth. And this one, it's the same thing. It's bounce light, but it's more subtle and it's more, again, playing with the warms and the cools in the light, trying to make the skin look luminous. And I tried to get away. I tried to do the same thing with the fur. I don't feel I'm as successful. Just I again, I noodled a bit with a smaller brush, and then I tried to get away from it, and I went and took out a bigger brush. But at the same time, I just wanted it to be more like dabs and patches of paint. But I did smooth a lot out with water. It came back in because once there was a certain amount of thickness to the paint, I was able to come back with just water and kind of blend the areas around the face. But you can see like the areas around the coat are a lot more loose as far as the brush strokes is concerned. And I try to get a combination of both when I paint and when I use the brush. Like I said before, it's a matter of being able to translate technically what I see and leave out the things that I don't want to put in as far as the information. But it's also getting familiar with the medium, with the materials, learning how to handle the paint and handle the brush, and how to handle specifically gouache. I'm trying to not just get good at drawing and painting, but getting good at using the materials. And then see the dark, what I was trying to do was some of these darks have blue in it, some browns. I didn't go all the way black or all the way white, unless it's the top of her forehead right there, which is the whitest that it's gotten. But most of the times when I tried to get a lot of values in between what's totally white and totally black. In the same way I did this, I wanted to, this is a self-portrait. I wanted to also work on that. I took this photograph because of the contrast and the shadows and the eyes and and underneath the nose and the beard and stuff like that, and it just I didn't have to put as much detail as I did in there. Sometimes I can't help it. It's not a lot of detail. Just to most people who do a lot more detail than I do, it won't look like a lot of detail. But for me, I'm trying to maybe cut back on it and generalize more to develop more of I guess a unified image or simple image, something that's easy to read. This one is similar in that way. That bag was maybe too big and covered too much of that bottom half of the sheet, but I was happy with the face. The sleeves, I felt the same way, kind of sloppy the way it was painted. All in all, I like it. But I'm looking at it, seeing areas that I can improve and that I can bring into my next painting, and think about what I want to do as I go on from here. See, this next painting was just the value, just the values, black and white. Trying to keep it simple, and forget the color for right now, and keeping the paint simple. Sometimes it's very hard to do, because I want to work with as few values as necessary to say what I want to say. And sometimes it's good to take away the color and just to concentrate on that to help make the image simpler. I was more successful in including more of the figure here, and I was very happy with working this. I liked that I included more of the background, but the thing that made this so pleasurable to work on was I did a terrible painting underneath this, and I took a large brush and just thinned it down with water. Then I went back in and put a casein background on this, a warm casein tone, and from there on it was fun to work on. The paint got absorbed and was easy to build up on that casein background, and so it's something that I would want to do again. This is a sketch where I tried to work more on the brushwork, but it was very model was very pretty. Has a lot of very subtle things happening, so it was kind of hard to draw her face, and especially the angle that it's in, and and I find it difficult to keep her looking youthful. I pushed more on the details on this one. Again, for some people this may not be a lot of details, but what I wanted to do was see what I can do with the gouache, see how much control I can have using the paint. Now I know people do a lot of wonderful detailed work with gouache, so I know what gouache can do, but it's a matter of what I can do with it, and learning. Just because the medium is capable of so much more, I need to learn how to use the medium to get the most out of it. And so that's why I kind of did this painting with that in mind. I wanted to see what I can do with it as far as building the image, coming more closer to a finished painting than a sketch. Very thick paper, and so it took a lot. Here's I also did something different. The bottom part of this painting, obviously her blouse with its complicated patterns and designs. It was different for me, and what I don't think that I accomplished what I wanted to. For one thing, the major criticism I have against my own painting is that the blouse doesn't describe the form underneath. It describes the patterns. I just didn't do a good job here at describing what's underneath. But nevertheless, I kind of looked at this as a step in the right direction as far as things I want to do as I go on and problems I want to solve. The bottom part of this painting is more of a letdown, even though it kind of looked interesting. The top part was more typical of the other paintings, but all in all, I kind of looked at this as going in the right direction as far as what I wanted to do with this sketchbook. So I didn't think that this was a complete failure at all. Again, here I am trying to include more of the figure, but the problem with that is it gets cut off just right above the ankles, right on the shin bone somewhere. And I had to use a smaller brush for a lot of this, and had to exclude a lot of what I would have painted in because it was so small. But I currently purchased a larger sketchbook, same type of sketchbook. This was fun to work on. A lot of it is similar to what I did before. Um, and even similar to this in that it is very detailed. The details are a lot more subtle. The transitions are a lot more subtle. Um, there's some hot spots as far as the darks are concerned, that they got darker and more focused, and the same with the light. But all in all, it's a kind of soft contrast. And but it was, you know, I with that other painting, the man in the hat. Um, I was trying to push it to see what I can do with the medium, and I was very happy with the outcome. In the same way, this is similar, but not the soft contrast as before. And I was really trying to also make it kind of look a little bit more brushy, less smooth like this one. Um, but it's kind of like an in-between. I was still pushing, uh, um, and this is, I guess, at the point where, unlike that first painting that I started out with, that it begins to be more and more, or less and less a sketch, and more of a finished painting. Here's another self-portrait. Again, still taking up the idea of working those big areas. It's from a reference photo that I took around the same time as the other one. But no, I didn't take this at the same time, but I took it under similar light condition was what it was. And because my beard is a lot bigger at this time. But I thought this was a lot better at working on these big shapes and getting the you know, uh, working that reflected light from the beard was fun, and you know, playing with the warms and the cools and so forth. And I had a lot of fun with this one. And it went by pretty quickly. You know, well, I guess because I'm more familiar with my face than I am with anybody else's, so that was kind of a given. And this is the last painting. This is the last entry in the sketchbook, and people have told me that this is not a sketch, and they're probably right. I wanted to, like I did with the other stuff previously, was to see what I can do with the paint and see if I can push it more. And I know that gouache is capable of that, but I want to be able to do it myself, and so I have to learn how to master the medium to be able to do it myself. So this is the point where I left off at the sketchbook. This is the last, like I said, the last entry, and I was really happy with where I've gotten in the sketchbook. I think it was time well spent. I think it was if you look at the beginning, this is the first painting to the last. I think I came a long way. I think I came a long way with these last paintings, and with the consistency and wanting to do better and better at painting, and this is where I wound up. So anyway, just as an aside, I do have a video on Gumroad on painting in gouache that's available for purchase or for streaming, and where I talk about the materials and how I use it and the surfaces that I use, and so would be available to anyone who's interested in learning more about gouache. And that's it. That's the final page. I'll leave the link on the Gumroad video below. But that's it. And up until my next video, I will see you guys soon. I thank you for watching this video, for taking the time to do that. All right. See you later. Bye-bye.